on the Struggle Isolation Edition. A TV news industry devoid of diversity. Failing uni students set to lose financial support. And a premier sheds his suit for a jacket. Let's kick things off with a recent report from Media Diversity Australia, which saw a distinct lack of diversity in Australian TV news presenters. According to the report, 3/4 of the presenters are from Anglo-Celtic backgrounds compared to half of the population belonging to non-Anglo-Celtic demographics. And in traditional fashion, the news outlets have come out calling the report flawed and disappointing. Pretty much the same words viewers use to describe the reality drivel being aired on their networks. Let's cross now live to our health correspondent Condescend to explore this a bit further.
Thank you, Tavleen. Look, I think it's unfair to say that news media hires people exclusively on race. I mean, look at me, for example, I got this job because my dad runs the place, and that's got nothing to do with the colour of my skin, And you're asking me these questions because as the health correspondent, I'm the most qualified to answer, isn't that right?
I'll get back to you on that one. Don't you think television news needs to reflect Australia as a culturally diverse nation?
You know what? Absolutely. You're right. News television should represent the people of Australia.
Oh, I was sure you were going to say something.
No, you didn't let me finish. The problem is, people of non-Anglo-Celtic backgrounds just don't want jobs on television, Most people of colour have lower paying jobs. Well, they want to be there if they didn't want to be. You silly goose.
The report found that 88% of presenters in Channel 9 are white. Don't you think that's a blatant misrepresentation of the population?
Channel 9? You're kidding. They've got a Brooke Boney, the Indigenous woman, and she's like one of the main ones.
I don't think that works.
No, that is demeaning to say that she's only representative of a small percentage. She's worth about 4 of them anyway. No, I'm still going. The thing is, news media doesn't have a problem with race. I mean, look at you, for example. You're a black...
I'm a what?
You're a host of a show. And good on you. Richly deserved, I'm sure. Yeah. I've got no doubt that you got this job because you're a top journalist of high calibre. No. News media doesn't have a problem. Not while I'm here, anyway.
Thanks, Condescend. That's all we have time for today. Well, the media outlets got one thing right. It definitely is flawed and disappointing. But thanks to the recent license extension, we have got Channel 31 for another year to give diverse voices a platform in Australian media. Moving on to kissing babies, awkward handshakes, and Hawaiian holidays. All of the agenda now as politicians breathe a sigh of relief that it only took a global pandemic to save themselves from continual public humiliation. And while we are missing out on the traditional he said, she said politics and the familiar jingle of slogans that are invariably controversial, sexist, or downright obscure, there's a new 3-word phrase that's taken Victoria by storm. The North Face. Yes, Premier Dan Andrews' chosen weekend press conference attire has become quite a sensation, with some jacket enthusiasts trying to predict the daily number of cases based on the Premier's chosen wardrobe. It may seem strange that amidst the pandemic, people are obsessing over a logo, but to be fair, there's only so long one can listen to a person rattle off numbers for an hour and a half, day in and day out, before their attention begins to waver. But of course, Andrews isn't the only politician to roll with an alter ego. Bill didn't mind the casual look, Tony went even briefer, and yeah. To find out more about this jacket obsession, let's cross now to our truth seeker.
This is all very exciting, my first appearance on free to air. I'm more used to being on Sky News with Alan Jones and Peter Evans. Anyway, you'll get nothing but the best from me because I conduct all of my investigations with logic, integrity, evidence, and of course, sincerity. Supposedly, There's no connection between the 5G network and coronavirus, and while initially I was adamant that there was a link without having any solid proof to support my beliefs, I have all the facts I need now. Victorians, while I wish I could tell you that you've been led astray, I'll be honest, you haven't. Throughout this entire pandemic, nothing has been hidden from your view. In fact, everything is in plain sight, and you're all just as blind as the bat that started this whole shebang in the first place. While everyone's been worried about some invisible enemy, the real one takes the shape of a much more familiar form, and it's plastered right across the front of Daniel Andrews' favourite attire, the North Face jacket. Think about it. Think about it. Take a look at the logo. Those 3 hideous Wi-Fi bars spewing out that horrid 5G that's going to destroy life as we know it. And then, of course, all these hotspots popping up across the state. People, wake up to what's really going on here. And then there are talks of Russia and their vaccine, which apparently...
Apologies. We'll have to cut the segment short and remind Alex she's no longer on Sky. While that happens, we are off to a quick break. Welcome back to Hogwarts. For our viewers aged between mid-20s to early 30s, you all probably have that one friend who can't shut up about Harry Potter and how it relates to every aspect of their lives. And if you don't have that friend, odds are you are that friend. Well, now might be a good time to check in on that friend because between the time travel / fiction stage play, the abysmal Fantastic Beast movies, a drug-addled star, and J.K. Rowling proudly outing herself as a bigot, now is not a good time to be a fan of Harry Potter. For more on this community of people whose personal identities revolve around a single series of books, we now cross to Sophia, our fangirl.
Thanks, Tavleen. When I find that I'm having trouble in life, I like to turn to a very special book. A good book. A wise book. A book that reveals knowledge and truth by which we can all live our lives if only we follow it faithfully. I'm talking about Harry Potter, obviously, which among the faithful is considered to be a single continuous testament revealed to us by the revered J.K. Rowling in the form of books for children. When I found Potter, life became so much simpler. Suddenly, all issues, from the global technology oligopoly to international geopolitics, could be understood by simply sorting each side into its corresponding house. For example, I would never have been able to understand that Donald Trump is a psychopathic crypto-fascist if I hadn't read a 5,000-word blog post explaining how he's basically Voldemort and that Nancy Pelosi tearing up his State of the Union speech was the same as Professor McGonagall at the Battle of Hogwarts. Like all works of revelation, Potter is immaculate, but a prophet's work is never done, which is why J.K. Rowling has continued to shower us with very important details about the wizarding world more than a decade after the last book was published. Like, did you know that before they adopted Muggle plumbing, all wizards would just simply shit themselves and use magic to disappear the evidence? Truly the voice of a generation. Or did you know that Dumbledore would be a supporter of Israel in the Israel-Palestine conflict and that the Harry of the second half of Deathly Hallows would agree with him? Wait, that doesn't sound right. Is this the same Dumbledore who told Cornelius Fudge that, and I quote, "You place too much importance, and you always have done, on the so-called purity of blood. You fail to recognize that it matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be." Man, I thought Harry Potter taught a message of resistance against all forms of oppression, like that time Hermione tried to liberate house elves from domestic slavery and everyone collectively told her to shut up. Does this mean that not everything J.K. Rowling says is beyond question? That would explain why she spent the past year building up a transphobic rant. That would also explain why she's started amplifying bigots who want to equate the LGBTQ+ people with pedophiles. Wow. It's really hard to believe that this is the same woman who wrote that wizarding finance was controlled by greedy, duplicitous, Hook knows goblins. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think it's time to read a new book. Back to you, Tavleen.
I share your pain, Sophia. In other news, Sam Newman has posted a bizarre video to Twitter pretending to be a dog, arguing that golfers should be allowed to chase balls if dogs are allowed to. Look, who knows how long Victorian restrictions are going to last for? But Sam need not worry because time will fly by in dog years. Though this isn't the first time that Newman has criticized the lockdown restrictions, stating that if golf courses remain closed, he would just prefer to stay home and get shit-faced. The comments confused many, however, who had assumed Newman had already been on the sauce for many of his recent media appearances. In related news, AFL players Jayden Short and Nick Floston have caused controversy when photos emerged of them groping their teammate Marbert Chol. While Marbert has defended his teammates, many feel that this kind of sexual harassment is never acceptable, except when it happens to women in their workplace, in which case,
boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
Newman and others have been criticized for their controversial comments about this scandal. So as to respond, we now go to Suzanne from PR.
Thanks, Tavleen. And with the AFL groping scandal, things have been very busy here and it's just been all hands on deck. But the team has really just pulled together and we'd just like to set the record straight about a couple of things. First, Sam Newman. Sam Newman has gotten into a little bit of trouble this week for saying that grabbing someone's crotch isn't groping. Now, I know that might sound bad, but it's just all a matter of perspective, and it wasn't really what Sam meant. And in fact, in the past, Sam has actually said that he thinks grabbing balls is a dog act. Moving on to Triple M. Triple M are in hot water after writing a parody of the Richmond theme song, which the fake news are saying makes fun of sexual assault. But it's just all a matter of perspective. And the line, "feeling for your keys," is a clear reference to losing someone's car keys, not groping. Also, the song's published with a typo, and it was actually supposed to say, "watch your clock and balls." Next, we've got Jayden Short and Nick Flosteen, the alleged gropers. What was that? Okay. Sorry, the gropers. Now, I know the photo looks bad, but again, it's just a matter of perspective. Because really, okay, I've got nothing for this one. Back to you, Tavleen.
Good to have you on board, Susan. It's time for another break. Welcome back. The federal government continues to shake up the university system, with struggling students in the firing line. The changes would see students who fail at least half their units after taking 8 or more unable to access the HECS payment for the next year. With a lot of domestic students relying on HECS to pay for their degrees, this could lead to essentially students being kicked out of the university for failing. Education Minister Dan Tehan justifies the policy by stating that it would ensure students do not keep failing units, which would be leaving them without a qualification but a larger debt. While students with exceptional circumstances may be eligible for exemption, student representatives are skeptical as to how it will look once implemented. Let's now cross to the Struggles Career Advisor to shed some more light on what this means for university students.
Thanks, Tavleen. My name is Em Floyd and I'm the Struggles Career Expert. If anything, I'm way too qualified for this job, and their decision to call me only an expert is almost insulting. I know the job market better than anyone. I am a career genius. I really was born for this job. Now, with the pandemic still going on, lots of young people have lost their jobs, with some other so-called experts suggesting that youth unemployment rates are going to take longer to rebound than the rest of the workforce. As well as this, they've also said all this stuff about how young people are finding it hard to start their full-time careers and blah blah blah. But none of this really matters. Now that the federal government has introduced changes to HECS repayments, this finally means that the job market won't be crowded by a bunch of underqualified graduates. The genius thing about the cancellation of HECS payments means that we will basically fix Australia's unemployment, since most graduate students don't find work anyways. So now we'll have a surplus of students stuck at university who won't be clogging up the job market. The Education Minister, Dan Tehan, is really a clever guy. People keep saying that he is pushing students for failure, but really it's more of an encouragement to try harder next time. Now, I have heard people say that university students are doing it tough financially and psychologically and all this other jazz. But let me give you an insider tip. These kids have never had it easier. All their classes are online, so they don't even need to commute to uni, and now they can go to classes from bed. And these kids need to toughen up and look on the bright side. I have always said, if millennials wanted jobs, they could just try harder. I have survived my fair share of economic crises, and let me tell you this, if you just stop being lazy and don't complain about everything, you can get whatever you want. That's all from me. Back to you, Tavleen.
Thanks for your support, Em. On that note, we have reached the end of the first episode of this season. In case you need reminding, pants are worn on the legs, your shower's in the bathroom, and baking is a great waste of time. Until next week, the struggle, it's real.